The record shall reflect that the chair and vice chair are present.
All right, please rise for this Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So on June 30th, 2024, the City of Vista submitted an application for Encampment Resolution Funding Round 3, or ERF3, grant, which included $2.6 million for outreach, housing navigation, and housing stability services. On July 15th, 2024, the City of Vista released an RFP for homeless outreach, navigation, and housing stability services, and San Diego Rescue Mission was selected as the winner. On December 23rd, 2024, the City of Vista was awarded the ERF3 grant, and on February 26th, 2025, pardon the mistake there, the City of Vista accepted the funds from the California Department of Housing and Community Development. The ERF3 contract will be providing continued efforts for the by name list, will coordinate case conferencing, increases our outreach workers by 6, including 1 clinical social worker, provides housing navigation services, housing stabilization services, and ends June 30th, 2026, with the option for up to a 12-month extension. The ERF3 budget includes $110,000 for operating costs, $1.9 million for staff costs, $100,000 for flexible spending, $10,000 for family reunification, $215,000 in admin costs for a total of $2.3 million. The recommendation is to approve a recommendation to City Council in support of San Diego Rescue Mission for ERF3 outreach, housing navigation, and housing stability. Up next is Daniel Schacht to provide information on himself. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Council. Happy to be here. My name is Daniel Schacht. I'm the new Director of Outreach for North County. So I will oversee the VISTA team. And a little bit about myself. I do have lived experience. I had 3 years on the streets of San Diego battling with addiction, and it was through the consistency of somebody in outreach coming and consistently showing love to me that made me make a decision to go into a longer-term program, which then brought me to do the work that I've been doing for quite some time now. So over the past 9 years, I've been working in social services, mostly for the San Diego Rescue Mission. I took a brief pause 2 years ago to leave and go to Waco, Texas. I wouldn't advise it, but was able to work in social services and directed a shelter out there as well. Some of the positions I've held at the Rescue Mission are Associate Director of Recuperative Care, Director of our Transitional Housing Program, Director of our Mission Academy 1-year program, and now Director of Outreach for the City of Vista. So I did want to go over a little bit about the prioritization in the by name list. For the San Diego Rescue Mission, we will continue to manage our unsheltered by name list, where we'll be having our outreach workers go out and be kind of the front line to identify those experiencing homelessness and kind of assess their needs and figure out what the best course of action to take with those individuals will be. And we will also be working in partnership with the local authorities, the Vista Sheriff's Department and Fire Department, to develop a by name list that's more for the high utilizers. Hopefully we can get the hospitals working with us eventually on that too. But for those unsheltered folks that are more high needs, higher acuity folks. A little bit about our engagement piece, the San Diego Rescue Mission. We're going to implement a multidisciplinary approach to outreach in encampments in the higher traffic areas that are identified by the City of Vista. The team will consist of our outreach lead, outreach workers, and our associate social worker or licensed clinical social worker. The coordinator will lead our efforts to engage additional service providers and key stakeholders to ensure a collaborative and comprehensive response. Excuse me. Our roadmap to housing. So our outreach specialists, those are really going to be the boots on the ground folks that are really building trust with the folks that are in the higher traffic areas and encampments. They will engage with individuals experiencing homelessness, assess immediate needs, figuring out if we can use diversion or if shelter is a good option or if they are housing ready. The housing navigator's position will be to build relationships with landlords and serve as a liaison between the clients and property managers and advocate for those individuals seeking housing. They will also coordinate lease agreements and help ensure successful move-ins. And the housing stabilizer, this is really where I've seen Housing First not work so well, is that I've heard wraparound case management, but I haven't seen it done well. I think the housing stabilizer position is really going to be the bread and butter to help, because this person's going to be doing in-house case management weekly with the housed individuals, conducting regular home visits, supporting life skills development, and addressing the barriers that may lead to housing loss. So really preventing those individuals from becoming homeless again. Our supportive staff, the associate social worker or LCSW that we hire, will be working with the higher acuitive individuals, playing a key role in clinical case conferencing, working with the case managers, working with care plans for the clients with complex needs. It will be a very important role because that LCSW or ASW is also going to be able to have the language to communicate with the hospitals for those higher needs that may need skilled nursing, as normal outreach workers really can't pass that barrier of working with doctors and trying to get through to them, the higher needs folks. So to have that position is going to be just very imperative to getting people off the streets. We'll have a data specialist that will help maintain the data systems and the by name list of individuals experiencing homelessness. This will assure data accuracy, timely reporting to funders and partners, and assist in tracking client progress across programs. We also have a coordinator position. This is going to be the lead outreach efforts in encampments in higher trafficked areas. It'll provide on-site supervision for our outreach specialist and ensure effective engagement strategies, support the team safety, and help manage complex situations in the field. Additional responsibilities including coordinating with partner agencies, kind of building those relationships so we all play nicely together, and just building consistent communication between the outreach team and program leadership. Training for the San Diego Rescue Mission, we do staff-led training. We try to do best practices for everything, so motivational interviewing, trauma-informed care, ethics and healthy boundaries, de-escalation, behavioral health and substance use disorder, external training that we utilize is CPR and first aid, Narcan, mental health and first aid, homelessness training resources, SAMHSA developing competence in working with LGBTQAI plus community, and National Alliance to End Homelessness. We're also going to be going after training to get our folks trained on CalAIM to be able to help resource with funding for move-ins for people experiencing homelessness.
And that's the end of staff's presentation.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any speakers on this item? All right. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to hear this. And I appreciate, Daniel, you coming on. And I really appreciate what you said about consistent outreach. And if we didn't have this contract, if we didn't have this grant, we would not be able to provide that type of consistent outreach that can really move people forward, right? Not just, one touch and, another ask, right, to go to the shelter, but really that consistent humanitarian relationship building for our neighbors who are outside. And, the paths and the corridors that are mapped in the contract and in the grant, I think are very appropriate. I think, Mayor and I both agree we want to be able to have oversight of where some of the activities take place within this contract, and I think our mapping is pretty good. But I'm always identifying areas that need more support. We've seen different people in our community go through struggles, and they might land on a particular street, right? And so if we're able to contact them with that consistent outreach, I think it can really make a difference. Since we're here and I can reference it to y'all today, I do think that Melrose, between Melrose and Hacienda, needs a little bit more support near the courthouse, near some of the county facilities and buildings, near the jail. I do think that that's an area that needs more support. So that consistent outreach is possible now. Thank you so much, Daniel and Jonathan and the entire team, for making this grant successful, because it was really competitive and we got it. I'm super excited, and I want to find a way for us to celebrate that, but I just want to say thank you. Within your presentation, I think all the supportive services are awesome. All the supportive services are awesome. I think we're doing better and better at providing care, and that's what we want to do. We want to be better and better at providing care. But we also have, the opportunity to collect some data. So my feedback would be here, we're getting a lot of data on people entering services, and I would like to see some data on, build up that conversation around the exiting services, right? Really, where people are going, where do people ideally need to go, right? Do people want to be reunified with family? Are people looking for rental housing? Are people looking for, subsidized housing? Are they looking for income support? Are they looking for medical services and more, recuperative care and higher need support housing, right? For people who are higher acuity due to medical reasons, due to mental health reasons, right? So we want to be able to track that, because if we can provide the best services to include the type of housing and shelter and resources that we provide for people to get them off the street, maybe y'all can help us track that a little bit in terms of what are the areas of need. So I'm always wanting to know what are the areas of need. And y'all are right there with the folks on the street, and I commend you for it, and you know what people need because you're asking them and they're telling you. So thank you so much for building those relationships and being consistent. I think that this is a great item to approve and to get our whole council to support. And I would just maybe like to see how we can bring in a little bit more data tracking for the housing piece. And from you, Mayor?
Well, thank you. I'm also very pleased with the work that the Rescue Mission has been doing and some of the preliminary information that we've received. I'll compliment Nanette again with Retread. I think she's an excellent data scientist. She's not here today, but she's always got the answer to any kind of data question I can throw at her. And if she doesn't know it off the top of her head, she can work her Excel spreadsheet magic and get that answer within a couple of minutes of manipulation of her spreadsheet. I am not going to support long into the future creation of the homeless industrial complex without ever sharper calls for data and for understanding the inputs and the outputs. And our partners going forward, and I think you're committed to this. This isn't directed to any of our partners, but it's directed to all of them. I will vigorously oppose partnerships in the future with organizations that are not committed to data science, that are not committed to a real evaluation of the expenditure of financial resources and a real evaluation of the output. Taxpayers deserve to know what they're getting for their money. This is a lot of millions of dollars, and so I'm asking you to redouble your commitment to the data. We want that from all of our providers. We want to know, we do want to hold you accountable, and I know sometimes it's apples to oranges, but it is what it is. You can come to us with your suggestions, but we're not going to put our head in the sand like ostriches and ignore that we have an oversight obligation. So in that vein, I would like to see a new staff roster. We're hiring some new positions. We'd gotten up to 32 positions at one point on our homeless outreach staff. It wasn't all homeless outreach. It included retread and everybody that was involved. I don't know, how many, what was the most number of outreach people we had with Exodus, including housing navigators and assistants and?
That'd be 6, sir.
6, okay, so are we back to 6? Is that, are we gonna be at 8?
We have 4 currently, and we're going to add another 6.
Okay, so we'll be at 10.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I saw, and that includes this data scientist, and it includes the associate social worker and the coordinator.
The data scientist is not part of the outreach team. They would be a separate entity.
Okay, okay, so the rescue mission team will be 11 in Vista. Is that right?
In total, no. Do you want to?
The grant is 12. Oh, sorry. So eventually the grant will be 12 additional, and then the contract stays at 4.
Okay.
But at first we won't need all, so we're gonna have 3 housing stabilizers. We won't need them all in the beginning because we have to wait till people get housed. And we'll hire them accordingly. But eventually, that grant will have 12 new individuals.
But within the 12, one of those 12 is this data scientist. I'm calling
The
it
data specialist.
Data
Yeah.
specialist is what
Yes.
you're calling it.
Are we expecting that person to come on right away?
Yes,
So they're one of the 12. The data specialist is one of the 12.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We know how important data is, and we're all about it with you guys.
I'd like to see us be able to talk about every time this committee meets, which is, what did we decide, 5 times a year? Every other month, and we've got like 1 or 2 months dark. Yeah, well, so maybe at the workshops too. So at least every other month, if not probably every month. We should be so in the data every single day. This data specialist
Sure.
should live in these data to the point where if I ask for the number, they should be able to give it to me live today.
Okay.
But at minimum once a month, we should know how many new people we have on the by name list. Where did we encounter them? We should be able to, map them, and we should be able to see where we have, encampments that are developing. We got to go back and look at our dashboards all over again. We've made significant progress, and you've done a lot of work, Daniel, and you have Jonathan, on those dashboards, but we can still do better. We need to really continue to think about what the key metrics are. But, I know our point-in-time count number came down a little bit, but I think this by name list is going to genuinely give us, for the first time in the history of our city, a real look at how many people we really have, and really give us a better ability to describe where they are,
Yes, sir.
so that we can really figure out where everybody's going, what they're, I want to be able to figure out how many people are coming back. I also want to start looking at, because we're spending a lot of money in Vista, a lot of cities aren't doing what we're doing. It's fair, and the taxpayers deserve us to ask, of the last 5 years, number one, where were you last permanently housed? And number two, during the last 5 years, how many of those years did you live in Vista? I'd like to see us start asking that question. As much as I want to help every human being in the entire world, the city of Vista doesn't have the resources to help the whole world.
Can you repeat that question again for me? Can you
Yeah,
write that down?
I want to collect information about how many of the last 5 years that the individuals we're helping were living in the city of Vista.
In the last 5 years, okay.
Yeah.
What's
In
your
other
min-
words, I want to know, do they have a genuine connection to Vista?
Okay.
Or, it's, some residents ask, and it's a fair question to ask, and it must be answered. Are we attracting people to Vista for services because our service offerings are better than other cities?
Yes,
It's a fair question.
I know.
And voters ask it, and they deserve to have an answer to it. And we're accountable to the voters, and so I've been asked the question. I'm going to make sure we have an answer, and we should know. And also, I'm trying to work with my colleagues in other cities to encourage them to provide services in their cities. I like what we've done here in Vista. I support it, but I just said somewhere recently, we shouldn't be serving Escondido's problem, and Escondido shouldn't be forced to serve our problem. Our citizens' needs should be met in our city, and Oceanside citizens should meet Oceanside's. They should have their needs met in their city. So, but without the data to demonstrate, how much. And by the way, if they're serving an equal number of our citizens, I'd love to have a partnership with them, because I do realize it's a regional issue. But if we have cities that are not offering any services and they expect to have their citizens served in our city, that's where I think we need to go to them and say, hey, we're serving the needs of your population, and our citizens aren't going to foot the bill for the whole region. You've got to help, and you need to provide services also. Every community should have services. So if we don't keep track of that information, how do we do that? We can't. And I think it's one piece of data that people in the HIC, the Homelessness Industrial Complex, would just as soon not ask, because it's an impediment to future funding if citizens are upset that we're attracting the problem to our city. It's something that people don't want to talk about. But that's exactly why we have to talk about it. We have to be honest, transparent, and accountable.
Absolutely.
So, and then I'm looking forward to just all kinds of information that I think we should be able to glean from the by name list.
We would really appreciate if you could write down all those things that you're interested in
course.
so that we can capture it all the way. We don't want to assume what you want. We'd love to just give you what you want.
100%, we absolutely will. I don't know if Jonathan's been keeping a list of questions we've asked. We've sat here through many meetings, not only of this committee but of the council, and we've asked a lot of different questions, and that's how we got to where we're at with the dashboard, right? So, but to me, it doesn't. I'm not really that concerned about graphics or anything. Like pie charts and line graphs. I'm good with numbers and a chart that shows, okay, a chart's probably my preferred, where we see, okay, here was the number a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Here was the number over the last 12 months. I'd like to be able to compare year over year for the last 5 years, and I'd like to be able to compare month over month for the last 12 months, so that we know, we measure ourselves in terms of our current annual progress, and also be able to measure ourselves in terms of where we're at, in the last couple of months, so that we can all be motivated. I guess that's all I have right now. So I'd like to have a staff roster. I'd like to have the names of all the staff members, what their titles are, which organization they're employed by, which grants, which funding source they're funded through. I think, when we build an organization of 30 plus people, the council that's authorizing the money, I have to be able to put all these people in my mind, like, where are they? What are they doing? Because it's a lot of people to keep track of. So that's very, very helpful.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your sentiment around every community should have services, and I think we're in a position to continue to provide a high level of service with this grant. And so we're going to optimize it. And I think we've really improved our look at the data. We have monthly updates. We have weekly updates that have been integrated. And, having live data response and in the moment updates, that would be pretty phenomenal. And it also might be a pretty stringent process, right, to be able to supply those live updates. So if there are any challenges in supplying those types of updates, I want those articulated. I want to be able to understand when we are collecting the data, how we're doing it moment to moment. I know you're collecting data in the street. I know that we're using technology that can assist us with that. So please let us know what the barriers are to accomplishing that and being able to report out to us in the moment. But I agree. We have some cities that aren't providing services, and I'd be curious to know what some of their data looks like, and appreciate you having those conversations.
I wasn't asking for any kind of live data. I was just like at most asking for once a month. Although, I mean, if I thought it was technologically possible, like a business owner that likes to look on his point of sale system remotely so he can see what's happening in his business while he's away, I mean, that would be cool. I don't know if it would necessarily be super useful or not. But I just want to be clear that that's not necessarily what I'm asking for. That wasn't what I was, because I don't know how they would do that. But I'm just asking for a once a month.
I think our weekly updates have been really helpful. Those going out weekly. There's different briefings that we get to have with staff to prepare for reviewing these contracts and choosing programs and designing our services. Right. So
I guess what I'm trying to say is the reports. We've spent a lot of time talking about the reports. There's a lot of data in them, and the labels have tended to be a moving target. And oftentimes it's difficult. Now, when we're consistent in our formats and we learn what the labels mean, then we can compare. But to me, the reports are much more meaningful when we can verbally discuss the numbers and the data in the reports, which is why really just what I'm saying is I want everybody to be on full alert that we're going to ask a lot of questions and expect that this data specialist has a real command of the data, and you're prepared to come and talk about the progress that you're making and how it compares to a month ago and a year ago. That should be on this committee's agenda, in my opinion, every single time that we come together so that we can really get a fix on, are things getting better or are they getting worse? Are the things that we're doing working? Are there beds available? Last time that you were in front of us, the rescue mission, you told us that, the yes rate is way up, which is phenomenal. That's what we want. I got to speak to the sheriff yesterday at an event and had a nice conversation with her. I told her, the good news is we've wanted to have a problem where we didn't have enough shelter beds. That was the desire, was that the yes rate was so high that we then had to go out and figure out how to accommodate people with additional shelter and housing options. That's a good problem to have, and now it's one we have to solve. But we need to really have a handle on how many times people are saying yes, and you're finding you don't have a place for them to go. We really need regular updates on that.
Okay.
We are two people that can solve that problem, but you have to really be persistent, and I don't know another word to say it. You have to bang on us with this information. You need to bring it to us regularly. We need to understand who, why, how on the need for additional services. We need to be able to justify it. We need to be able to communicate it to our colleagues. The deputy mayor has a whole set of relationships and colleagues that she's closer to, and I have a whole group of people that I have relationships with, and we're talking with federal, state, local leaders, other city leaders. We're in a position to make some of these changes, but we're not on the ground with you. We really need you to bring what you're seeing on the ground to us and tell us what the problems are, the things that frustrate you, the things that you go, why isn't anybody doing this? I need you to come to these meetings and tell us. Just come with an open heart and just say, hey, This is what I want to lay before you. Here are the challenges that you think that we need to solve, and let us have a whack at it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, completely agree. You know, let's continue to persist in looking at the data for not just identifying the persons involved, right, and how that individual is entering into our system of services, but also evaluating the services, of course. All right, I think if that's sufficient feedback, we'll go ahead and move to the next item. Thank you for being here. Our next item is on our proposed agreement with Jewish Family Services for Safe Parking Program.
Next discussion is going to be for a safe parking program here in the city of Vista. So history of a Vista safe parking program. In April 26th of 2022, City Council approved a safe parking RFP. The RFP was published on June 29th of the same year, and 2 proposals were received. Jewish Family Services of San Diego, or JFS, was selected as the preferred provider. And on January 10th, 2023, City Council approved a contract with JFS. The first amendment of the contract was signed on June 26, 2023. The second amendment was signed on June 25th, 2024. On June 30th, 2024, the City of Vista submitted an application for an ERF3 grant, which included $1.1 million to fund the safe parking program for 2 additional years. On December 23rd, 2024, the City of Vista was awarded the ERF3 grant, and the second amendment for the JFS safe parking is set to expire on June 25th, 2025. Safe parking contract in question would begin on June 25th, 2025 for 12 months with the option to extend until June 30th, 2027. With the capacity to provide a minimum of 10 parking spaces with a maximum of 25 parking spaces, staffing for operations, including case management, housing navigation services, and on-site security, provide on-site restroom facilities that are ADA compliant, a hand washing station, adequate lighting and fencing to ensure participant safety and lot security, 7-day-a-week operations, ensure it's a pet-friendly environment, and partnership and participation in community engagement meetings. The budget for the safe parking contract totals at $1.1 million for operating costs of $389,000, staffing costs of $591,000, flexible spending of $25,000, and admin costs of $150,000. Recommendation requested is an approval recommendation to City Council in support of JFS to continue providing the Vista Safe Parking Program. Up next, I have Nicole McCune to present on this Vista Safe Parking Program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So since inception, Safe Parking Program has served 230 individuals, which comprised 157 households. Currently, as of the last day of April 2025, we had 22 individuals enrolled, which comprised 19 households. And you can see our breakdown there. Age range, most of our participants or guests are adults aged 18 to 54. Our second largest group is adults 55 and older, and then families.
Did I skip too fast?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then you can see the zip code prior to enrollment on the side there with Vista, North County, and then other. We've had 138 total households exited since inception, 20 reunifying with family, 34 going back into permanent housing, 19 going to a shelter or also getting hotel vouchers. And those are our most vulnerable, the families and our elderly populations. From inception to now, our occupancy rate has hovered at 16 or 64%. The average days of positive exit for any exit is 48 days, so that includes family reunification, those shelter or hotel vouchers. And then average number of days to exit to permanent housing was 91. Takes a little bit longer for our guests to increase their income and do a housing search. 20 individuals increased their income upon exit. with 2 individuals having no income at the start of the program, but leaving the program with income, and then 1 individual in increased non-income earned benefits or public assistance benefits. In total, we've served 5,210 meals to our guests, with 3,335 coming from a generous donation from Dr. Bronner's, and the other 1,875 coming from community members, faith groups. And we've given $12,000 in financial assistance for items such as rent, deposit, small vehicle repairs, gas cards, and registration fees.
And that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you. Well, right off the bat, really appreciate you being here. And could I get a timeline of the program? This is our second contract with Jewish Family Service?
This is a second amendment. It's been in operation since 2023. City approved the contract on January 10th of 2023.
Okay. And this anticipated next contract would extend to what year?
12-year contract with the option to extend to 2027, June 30, 2027.
So the furthest it would extend is 2027.
It is limited by the ERF 3 funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've identified funding through ERF 3 for this continued services.
Correct. Yeah, we have to expend the funds by June 30th, 2023.
Okay, so
2027, my apologies.
2027, yes, sir. But what I'm identifying here is really a 5-year program that we can look at and evaluate for some of the data questions that the mayor and I have. I do see that in the 5 years that Jewish Family Service is supporting our initiative for a safe parking program, we can learn a little bit more about the conditions of people who are sleeping in their cars, experiencing homelessness, experiencing displacement. One of the concerning numbers for me, and I know for others, is the 91-day exit time. I mean, that's just what we're seeing across the board, right, with all of our service providers. And I would like to see how that number changes, right? I believe that that number has gone up since the inception of this program. And I anticipate it will continue to go up as short-term emergency services become more robust in the county. Yet we're not seeing the provision of a long-term, stable housing for our community, whether it be the community of people like me who grew up here, and my friends and family who have been at risk of homelessness and who have slept in their car, or it be the folks that are transplants to Vista and learn about our safe parking program and understand it as a way for them to be safe and hygienic and healthy and secure. So with this average number of days to permanent housing, I mean, I think the first barrier is that permanent housing. Mm-hmm. And then, identifying what can we do to make this stay even more brief. People are not supposed to be out there in their cars, living in their cars. So, we're looking at 3-month stay in our parking lot. If I could envision an alternative for those folks, I would, right? And I think that we are looking to provide more services for that exit. But what else can we see in the 5-year program, right? I mean, again, with the ability for us to continue this same standard of care, if not a better standard of care for the services related to recovery from homelessness, we have the potential to see this 5-year program as something that started as a pilot. We found it reduced the calls to service in the neighborhood area that it is located, right, which is such a relief because, with people sleeping in their cars, there are violations, parking violations, there's, littering, there's waste, there's crime in different ways, right? And so we want to be able to relieve that in the neighborhood and instead provide a safe and secure environment for people. So I'm very pleased with our ability to provide this program. But I want to see really how it fits in the whole continuum, because people who are in their cars can get just lost in the system, lost in the sauce, right? So we have folks that, if there is a discrepancy between our services that we're providing for shelter, such as at our navigation center, versus at our safe parking program, where people are being sheltered in their cars, should we expect that it's the same challenge, right? Should we expect that our constituency that is sleeping in their cars in our safe parking program have the same access to services as those at our navigation center? I would say yes, right? And I do believe that we're providing that level of care where we're all in, we're providing as many services as we can to get this number down and make sure that we have people, you end up in your car, you can spend a couple of nights if need be, but you're on your way to quick recovery when you get services from the City of Vista. So that would be my goal. And thank you for, again, including this, really robust description of services has to be provided for these grants to be awarded. And we've clearly demonstrated the value of these services. And I appreciate you being here, being able to reflect on some of the long-term numbers. But now we're looking forward to another contract. And I want to see, what that shows us about the state of homelessness. So that's my consideration. Mayor, I'd love to hear from you.
So I want to try and understand. I would add, I'm looking at positive exit rate. It looks like, and I don't know if you've calculated the number, but I'm coming up with like a 35% positive exit rate.
So we count shelter, hotel voucher, family reunification, and permanent housing as a positive exit to more stable living. And we'd be at about 50 or a little bit over 50%.
I'm not disagreeing with you about a shelter or voucher being positive, but I'd like to hear everyone's reasons why we would count that as a positive. Because to me, what we've done is we've simply kicked the can down the road. Here's my big concern. I'm calculating the program cost at $95,700 a month. And based on the participation rates in the last 20 months, that comes out to $3,800 a month per person. That's a lot of money. And I'm just wondering if that's the best bang for the buck. Or maybe if we gave this $1 million to our social workers and they just used it to help people access master leased housing. I mean, I would like to get people out of their cars immediately. I don't want any person living in their car anywhere, including here at City Hall. Yeah. And I view, if there are services available, if there is shelter available, if there is, especially if there's permanent housing available, and I stress if, but if there is a place that somebody can go and sleep safely for the night in a real bed, I can't imagine that it isn't driven almost exclusively by mental illness, the decision to be in a car. It's certainly, we probably all at one point in our lives slept in our car. I know I have, not comfortable, certainly not good on your back in the long run. I want to get these people indoors, like in a real shelter environment. So I just want to, I want to analyze this dollar amount and just ask. And it's not a negative on JFS or even the concept, but it's my job to ask, whether or not this is the best use of these funds. And I'm not saying it's not the best use of these funds right now, but I am saying I just know what I, as a human being, could do with $3,800 in a month. I mean, I could house and feed myself quite easily on that amount of money, 100%. I'd get a roommate, we'd get a $2,000, $2,500 a month apartment. You know, I might even get 3 roommates or 2 roommates so that I could pay $1,000 a month if I only had $3,800 to spend. And then I'd have $2,800 left to buy food and necessities. And I could probably live a pretty decent life on that. Now, obviously, the goal is to get there. But if we took, even so, what'd you say your percentage of positive was?
It's over 50% for
Over
since inception.
50%.
Yeah.
So then we just double this number for positive exit. Because if we could guarantee positive exit with this money from 3,800, just double that. What does that come up to? 7,600, is that right? I'm not a mathematician. So 7,600 times an average of 3 months times 3 months. So we're at $22,800 spent per positive exit. I mean, that's definitely a year's rent for somebody, for sure. I'm just wondering, like, if we just gave them a bag of cash. Not really. I mean, if we had a social worker who said, hey, we're going to help you lease a place. We're going to get you into some housing, and we're going to effectively, we're going to help subsidize your rent for the first year. I mean, honestly, for that amount of money, you should be able to really subsidize and maybe it's, hey, we're going to pay it for the first 3 months, and then you got to pay 10% for the next 3 months after that. Then you got to pay, 20%, and it keeps ramping up until after a year or whatever, they have to pay their own rent. I don't know. You're the ones that are dealing with people that are living in their cars and the psychology. I would love to better understand the psychology of why they're making that decision to stay there. I think it's I think inertia, and I don't have the experience that you have, all of you here in the room, dealing with people, but I am a human being, and I've done many things that were unhealthy, still am, in my life. Too much coffee, too much food, and inertia traps us, doesn't it? Right? A body at rest tends to stay at rest. I mean, it's like hitting that stumbling block where something has to change. How do we impel people to that quicker?
Yeah, I see a huge population, different demographics that we have in the program, older adults who are living on a fixed income. And so for them, affording a room rental is even out of their reach because they're making $1,000, maybe $1,400 a month. So they're paying for food and medical bills and things like that. So we're helping a wide range of people re-entering the job market, people who are underemployed. And so we're helping them really, that's our overall goal too, is to get people out of their car permanently and in stable living situations. So, helping them with job coaching. And
what percentage are seniors?
Can you go back to the slide? From inception, it's a little bit hard for me to read. 55 and older is 30%. Mm-hmm. And then 65 and older is, can you read that? So sorry, I can't read that one. 55 and older, 30%.
This is where I'd really like to understand, how this number compares to, because I'm coming up with a number of, what did I say it was, $22,800 per positive exit, and this is where I'd like to really, and I know everybody's going to be mad at me because that's apples and oranges, but this is where I'd like to see what's retread's positive exit cost. I mean, this is the one metric, in my opinion, as far as the financial accountability that we should be looking at. What is it costing us to have a positive outcome? That's where we want to, and where if I can get a positive outcome for $12,000 over here, then I'm going to invest I'm going to shift money away from where it costs $30,000. I'm going to shift it to where it costs $10,000 because I'm after positive outcomes, I don't know if, I bet Nanette knows the number. We could calculate it. We don't have, I've asked and I've known those numbers from Retread. I'd love to have them here to be comparable. I guess what I'm looking for from our Vista staff and from Deputy Mayor Melinda is an agreement that matters. The cost of the positive exit. And maybe my back of the envelope math here isn't.
Well, if I could respond to, I really appreciate this $3,800 number, because when I heard that number, I thought, wow, you're looking like the cost of rental housing plus food plus supportive services, which is what we're offering, right? The meals, right, are part of the service. We have donations and support from that, which is really incredible. And we offer dignified services. If you go out and get your own apartment, you're left on your own, maybe your mental health decays a little bit, right? So sometimes it's a little bit harder for people to really get back up on their feet. So that's where the concept of the safe parking program makes sense, right? But I've always been an advocate of income supports. And I do believe that when we give families funds and we put dollars in their pockets, that it will help them with their living expenses and with their life opportunities. And the senior challenges and those on a fixed income, right? There's, a large percentage of these seniors are on a fixed income, but a good amount of them will be working. Unfortunately, a lot of seniors have to go back to work, which is really unfortunate because they've spent their lives contributing to our economy, and now they have to go back to work. But there's also a portion of this data of people who are on disability, people who are on assistance for the long term. And the longer you're chronically homeless, the more likely you are to be disabled. And I'm a disability rights advocate because anyone can become disabled at any time. And in this situation, a lot of our seniors are becoming disabled by living in their cars. It's just not quality of life for 3 months to be living in your car, let alone a lot of people who come to the safe parking program were already out on the street in their cars before then. So, being able to evaluate these programs for their merit and for the value of the humanity and the service that they offer is valuable. But I also think it's important for us to evaluate our services based on what is really going to turn someone's life around. How do we motivate people, right, to make their lives better? And what services and supports as a community can we offer, right, that scaffolding for people to cling to in those difficult times so that they can get through it? And I know there's got to be information about, whether it's in the case management notes or something that's recorded, the challenges that people have finding rental housing. The demand is so high for people to find a place to live that they can afford. So $3,800 would go really far, really, really far in finding a place for people to live. But we're offering infrastructure in the form of a safe parking lot that does not exist in our rental housing market. And I'm surprised more people aren't taking advantage of the program, because I still see people sleeping in their cars, and maybe there needs to be more of a robust connection to services with San Diego Rescue Mission and our safe parking program. There are those corridors that we see homelessness visibly. But within our neighborhoods, tucked into our neighborhoods, chilling in the park, we got folks that are sleeping in their cars. And I don't think that we're fully utilizing the program. And from my understanding, the cost of the program becomes more efficient the more people are using it. So how do we balance, right, our interest in creating high quality services that are personalized for people while also providing services that can, meet the demand and capture the widest number of people? So I do think that this breakdown of the numbers, Mr. Mayor, is a really good conversation. And I think that there would be an appetite for, really transitioning people out of these services and into what I would say is subsidized housing, whether it's subsidized through rental payments for seniors who are on a fixed income, or it's subsidized through, housing developments that are deed restricted affordable, working with some of our nonprofit developer partners, right? Like we've been able to recently cut the ribbon on our first senior affordable housing, right? So more of that will relieve the need for these types of services. But that, seeing that 30% of seniors and knowing just how hard it is to find rental housing, I think that there's really a connection there. And I appreciate you bringing it up, Mayor.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at. The whole question of, I think subsidizing housing is definitely something that we have to think about. The federal government provides housing subsidy programs. The state provides housing subsidy programs. The cost of providing subsidized housing can get out of control. Like it can be into the tens of millions of dollars. It depends on how big of a population we serve. My point is it's extremely expensive, and we'd have to place some limit on it because as a city, we've got, what are we at, 118 million? Is that what we just approved for our general fund? Is that 118? 126. Anyway, no, it doesn't. I mean, we can get. I'm just saying it's a bigger conversation, is what I'm saying. But like I'm looking at the Waterleaf apartments in your district, $2,600 there's a 2-bedroom available right now. $1,300 would be, half of that. So I think there's money there for not only the housing, but also I think for the social worker to follow up, to provide the supportive service. So I just want to have the conversation. One of the other things that's really concerned me is I know that there have been children that have been living in the safe parking program. And I'm just going to be really blunt. That really tremendously bothers me. No child should live in a car for any sustained period of time, certainly not for 90 days. I would like to see us report when there are children and basically tell people, look, we'll do anything to get you and your kids. Esperanza here with Operation Hope would love to provide shelter for children.
That is our first priority, is to get families with minors, the most vulnerable, matched to shelter or hotel voucher to get them out in interim housing, stable until their next step.
I'd like to know how many days we had children living in cars in the, collectively. How many total nights, how many children for how many nights? I don't know the scope of this problem, but I can't abide by the thought of kids sleeping in our parking lot here. I mean, we have enough resources. I will cancel every other program until we get all the kids off the, out of the cars. Until every child has a bed. I don't care about the adults. Once the kids are, that's just wrong. It seriously bothers me. So I do want to see numbers on that.
Yeah,
we
share
can't
your
tolerate that.
sentiments with that, Mayor. Understanding how children are impacted by our programs is essential. So I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much for your presentation and your continued efforts. I think we will continue to provide direction, but at this time, I'm very grateful that we can continue to provide services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move to our final discussion, which is a general item on homelessness updates.
Morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Jonathan Long, Homeless Services Program Manager. We'll start this item with an update on the point-in-time count for 2025. for which the results were published publicly this past Tuesday. It's a little hard to see. I hope you have printouts in front of you, but you'll notice, of course, that countywide we've seen a reduction in 2025 from 2024 by 6.5% across all categories and across all regions. In San Diego specifically, or I should say countywide, in 2025, there were a total of 9,905 individuals counted as experiencing homelessness. This is a 7% decrease compared to last year, where 10,605 were counted. Between unsheltered and sheltered counts for veterans, families, and youth, they are down across all categories. And with chronically homeless, we saw a slight reduction in unsheltered homelessness and an increase in sheltered homelessness, which could describe a better utilization of shelter resources throughout the region. You also notice the unsheltered count by itself was a decrease of 6% from 6,110 last year to 5,714 this year.
I got a question on that.
Please.
I'd like to see us send a letter as a council to RTFH and advocate that the unincorporated area, which the county has sole responsibility for, is delineated on the point-in-time count. In other words, Bonsall and other unincorporated areas shouldn't accrue to the city of Vista's count when, you know, we're standing up major programs and we're sitting here today to oversee them and authorizing new programs and, you know, vying for grants. You know, this is a public report card about how we're doing. And, you know, we want good marks. We want to improve our numbers. And I can't improve what I can't control outside of our geography. So I'd like to see us ask that the unincorporated area is delineated. I think that would make sense. It's certainly a big enough area.
I completely agree, Mayor, and I'm surprised that it's even, the map is even allowed to look like this. Do we have any information from RTFH, or would staff be able to help us understand?
I can
How
provide
do
some insight
these
in that. The point in time,
areas-
excuse me.
How do these areas become included with the City of Vista numbers?
Yeah, so the point in time count is counted by census tract, and you'll notice the city limits don't perfectly align with the census tract borders. So there is that little bit of an inconsistency. You'll notice on this slide there are different areas of the unincorporated areas of the county that are separated. There's a small section north of the city limits, which is the Bonsall area that's considered. You'll also notice to the east is primarily where a lot of the census tract that is not in city limits is included.
I guess I should really ask you this question. I guess there's four census tracts that are outside or that are partially within, partially outside of.
Yeah.
But they're majority outside. Those are also, I'm guessing, areas. I don't know. I'm curious to know how many were counted in the point in time count in those four tracts.
We have that information. Yeah, we'll provide that in the next month when we have
Great.
more time to provide a
Yeah,
little bit
I'd
more
like to know the
analysis.
answer.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if it's next to zero, then it's a moot point.
Right. Also to that point, the committee might be interested to learn that per the agreement between Vista Encinitas and the RTFH, the sheltered counts at the BCNC, which you'll notice is included in the Vista point in time count, the residents from each respective city was reported in that city's count. So that night, Vista had 36 residents, which were included with our sheltered count. 8 residents were residents of Encinitas, and they were included in Encinitas' count, not in Vista's count. So that is one thing the RTFH was able to accommodate for the city of Vista based on both of your advocacy. But to return to the count itself, we did have 65 individuals counted in emergency shelter, 56 in transitional housing, and a total of 144 unsheltered. Other notable highlights, you'll see the comparison in Vista specifically for the overall change is a decrease of 2.2%. And unsheltered decrease of 15.3%. So again, I think this could demonstrate a better utilization of shelter resources by the city of Vista specifically. I'm happy to answer any other questions at this time. Otherwise, we can move on to other updates and respond to all questions at the end.
I'm okay with continuing.
Me too.
Next up, we have a quick update for the shelter-ready utilization. Currently, 6 emergency shelters in North County, San Diego are using shelter-ready at for different purposes. So the Boynton Creek Navigation Center just came online as of last week, and we are currently only using that to track individuals interested in shelter. But shelters like La Posada and North County Lighthouse, they are utilizing that for direct referrals to the program. We see something similar with Operation Hope and Jewish Family Services Safe Parking Lot, where there is an intermediary in between the request for the shelter or the safe parking space and the actual individual getting that service. Here you will see that there are currently 18 organizations within North County, San Diego that are using Shelter Ready app to help place individuals into shelter through the service. This is the last slide on Shelter Ready. If you have any questions, otherwise we'll continue to the next stage of the updates. First up is San Diego Rescue Mission with Daniel Schacht, North County Director of Outreach.
Okay, just want to give this monthly snapshot. Again, Mr. Mayor, also just want to take the time to recommit our organization to data. We are outcomes driven. Outside of these contracts, we have 26,000 active donors who we hold ourselves very accountable to for data purposes. So we will get you the data that you're asking for.
Thank you. I know that's the interest of the entire council.
Thank you. So at the beginning of the month on our by name list, we had 225 individuals experiencing homelessness. We had 46 new inflows. 22 of them were newly experiencing, 13 returned to homelessness, and then 11 returned to active. And then we had 31 outflows. I believe that's 31, yep. 3 into permanent housing, 28 into other destinations. So those would be shelters that we got folks into shelters. So we ended the month with 240, so up a bit from last month. Next slide.
Daniel,
Yes.
Let's talk about this number. How do you qualify? Is this, we had contact with them in the last 12 months? Is that?
So this is the by name list that we've been building since inception of working in Vista. So these are the individuals that we've been working with.
Within the last 90 days, I believe was the question.
Okay. So how would somebody's name come off of the list?
So say that they get into permanent supportive housing, that they, so into shelter for this specific, this is not our high utilizers by name list, this is our unsheltered by name list. So if they go into shelter, that's considered an outflow for this.
Okay. And so I want to make sure we're on the same page on this 90-day thing. So we've had contact with all 240 people in the last 90 days.
Yes,
And they're all in a place not meant for human habitation.
correct.
If we do lose contact with them or we haven't made contact after 90 days, that is another way an individual would drop off of this list. And then you'll see, so the return to active, that would be the 11 you see here. Those would be individuals we haven't had contact with within the last 90 days, but then did again after they were removed from the list, now back on.
Which is a good metric indicator of the lack of accuracy in dropping people off, right? You have to have some way to say the data have to be fresh, but that return to active is an important number because that tells us the number of people that were basically still actively unsheltered, even though we didn't, and that's good. These are great numbers. I mean, I wish they were lower. They're not great in the quantity, but they're very useful data. This is very useful information.
And to clarify, we're starting a new procedure here, right? With this by name list, where you may have been familiar with it through San Diego Rescue Mission, but for the city of Vista, this is the first time that we're seeing the inflows and the outflows in this way.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And we would probably expect there to be some changes, right? In 90 days from now, we might see that number occur of people who have dropped off because we weren't able to engage with them for 90 days.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, even, it could be even some of the people who were some of our new, you know, entrance into our services, right?
Yeah,
Maybe it's,
absolutely.
maybe we can get a little bit of data from this on what number of people engage one time and then drop off. And then I think I agree with the mayor that reentry number is very significant to me. But from that reentry number, we can maybe identify within a span of a year how many people engage one time and then we lose them because we don't hear from them in 90 days.
And we are able to track that currently.
That would be great. And as we continue, right, providing services, we'll be able to get more data on that. I appreciate this.
I just have to exclaim on behalf of all the people that we represent, just how crazy it is that we've been asking for this for, I don't know, 4 years, and we just now have it. And I mean, I credit the rescue mission because we asked Exodus for these data in this fashion in the by name list. We've been talking about it for years now, and you've made it happen very quickly. I didn't think it was going to be a hard thing to do. It was simply a, do you have the will to do it? And I'm not super happy. I'm super happy with rescue missions to don't listen to the rest of this, but I'm not super happy that it took us to this point to get here. But I'm happy that we're here now, but we can't move at this pace. I mean, this is, this is like if the firemen decided we'll get to the fire next year or maybe 4 years from now. But this is good. We're here now. That's what matters. But yeah, we got to have urgency about this because we got I mean, how many millions have we spent now? 18, 20?
Appropriated about 18. We've spent about 5 or 6 million with a considerable amount to come next year.
Yeah. Lots of money.
And
So
I appreciate the updates on our numbers trending downwards, but the problem does continue.
Yeah, and I mean, we only now are we really going to understand. I mean, we always know the point in time count is incredibly flawed because who came up with between 4 and 8 in the morning? I mean, isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's nuts. And it's the coldest day of the year where, and I've been out there with you doing that count and people are hunkered down. So you can't even find them. And there's not enough time in 4 hours to count everybody. But this is a logical, like if you were to say, okay, let's use logic and reason to count people, you would make a list and you would exclude the duplicates by name,
Right.
which is why you have a by name list. I just want anybody, there's at least 3 people at home watching this. I wanted them to understand how significant this is and what a better data science methodology it is. Makes so much more sense. And this is what everybody should be doing. Yeah. And I think that we should be getting credit. And I've told Congressman Levin and Congressman Issa, because the point in time count is a federal mandate. And I said, we should be credited with doing an actual by name list instead of the point in time count, because it is about resource allocation. And we should get resources based on our, in other cities, if they want the same advantage, they should go to a by name list because everybody should have a by name list. Right. You want to solve a problem, first step is identify it. All right, let's into my soapbox for the moment.
Okay, so this is going to be the other by name list of the more chronic homelessness that we're going to be continuing to build. It's obviously not true numbers right now because we haven't identified all of those high utilizers yet. But as you can see we went from 20 to 26 identified as high utilizers who need special attention. And I think with the ability from the funding from the ERF, we're really going to be able to get these people connected to the right services quickly.
So get super detailed with me right now on the difference between these people and the people in the last slide.
So the people in the last slide are those that we've identified in.
Speak right into the microphone so I can hear you better.
Those are the folks that we have identified in Vista as homeless, just as experiencing homelessness. This list is going to be chronic utilizers of emergency services. So that's police interaction, sheriff interactions, fire department interactions. Eventually, we want to be connected to hospitals to get that data as well. But these are the folks that are chronic homelessness, have been on the streets for over 3 years. The folks that we really want to be able to move quickly to get into service.
Could you go back one slide? Okay, so I want to nail this down, and I want everybody to agree. These people are all on the street. These 240.
Within the last 90 days, yes.
They're unsheltered.
Unsheltered,
Not
not
meant for
sheltered,
human
non-safe
habitation.
parking on the street.
Okay. And that this number does or does not include people living in the shelter now?
Correct.
It does not.
Does not.
Okay. So we would add that on top of this
We would
if
ideally.
we wanted to get back to the way
Yep.
the point in time count counts.
Yeah, so just like the point in time count, we'd have an unsheltered count and a sheltered count, and we can have the by name list, which includes both. Perhaps as two separate bar lines, kind of within the same chart.
Yeah, then I recognize the fact that you're not able to complete a full Viespadat interview with every person. I get that, right? Some people, you might not even get but a first name. I know that. But what do we know about these 240 people? How many of them have been homeless for more than 3 months? Do we ask them that? And do we track that?
We do track certain data points. I'm not sure on all of them, so I could get back to you on that.
I am
But
so excited for you to hire your data specialist and for them to be in this meeting and be like, hold on, let me open my laptop.
yeah,
I want to know how many of these 240 people have been unsheltered and for how long. That should be something that we should ask, hey, how long have you been out here? That's when I've done walk-alongs with your outreach workers, we ask that question.
that is a
I always
question
ask that
we
question.
capture. Yeah.
I will say, just statistically, that, you reference the VI SPDAT, and there's really, really robust information, like the VI SPDAT, and then there's a name, right? And if we can't get to everyone, then it means we have incomplete data. So for the folks that are maybe willing to answer that question, that does help us, but there are folks that, it's going to take those multiple touches to really get that information. So one of the questions I have is, why 90 days? Is that a time frame that's identified as, significant for relationship building? Is that some sort of industry standard?
But we can, for our own by name list, the city, the committee, and the council could dictate a different term
So
if they'd
can you
like.
explain the rationale of 90 days?
Not beyond that, it's the HUD standard, but we can certainly, again, modify that for our
we
own
have-
specific needs.
Yes.
No, that's exactly.
Oh, okay, HUD standards?
By the RTFH standards and policies, when we put somebody into the HMIS system, if we don't touch them again in 90 days, they fall out. The system kicks them out. And so we've just been following their standards. But like Jonathan said, you guys can,
That return to
dictate
active
that.
number is going to be a bright indicator about whether that 90 days is too little or too much.
Okay, it's interesting to watch. Thank you.
By the way, we got 12 outreach workers and 240 on the list. That's 20 per outreach worker. There's 21 working days in a month. So, you get 8 hours to devote to each of those individuals with 12 people. I mean, I know it doesn't exactly work that way, but I'm a back of the envelope math kind of a guy.
Yeah.
That's where we're at up here at the 30,000 foot level.
And that's where we're at right now, and it's going to take a community effort to get a real by name list fully, right? Because what the San Diego Rescue Mission touches isn't necessarily what a shelter that we're not actively working with is working with. So what I can commit to is giving you the best data that we can possibly get as a San Diego Rescue Mission, and if there's any sort of community partnerships that the council wants to think about taking on as an initiative to share information, we can really get a by name list that's actively working correctly.
I want you to come back to me with a suggestion of those partnerships.
Sure,
Who should we be partnering with?
I can do that.
Yes, please. Let's do it. We just need to know who it is. But yeah, so some people are not going to tell you their name. and you're gonna, male 30s living at this place, I don't know, I assume we're attempting to identify people, even if they won't give us identifiable information. I know that at one point it was like, can you give us your first name, the month you were born, and I don't know, the city you were born in. And there's 3 pieces of information that nobody else is going to duplicate. I'm John May, Kansas. It's not really personally identifiable, but it makes it possible for us to then dedupe and then reference that person later. Are we going to make some effort at that? Are we?
Absolutely. I mean, last week we had an individual that 2 outreach workers had engaged with and only got a first name, and it was the 3rd outreach worker that was able to connect and get the full name. So that's what that consistency in going out and being consistent and being present in the community is going to do.
So I think 90 days makes sense. I mean, given that on a monthly basis, you should have the ability to touch all 240 people once.
100%.
I think if my math was right there. So yeah, we'll pay attention to that return to active, and if it becomes a big number, then we'll know that maybe we shouldn't be dropping people off so fast. But 11 out of 240 is pretty small. But I'd love to know. I'd love to be able to classify into some bands. How many of these people meet the chronic definition out of the 240?
Right. So for the chronic would be if we're looking at the data that we're presenting today, the 26
Okay,
high utilizers.
Give me the definition of chronic.
Homeless for 3 years or more. I believe it's the Hudson. 2 years or more.
I thought it was 1.
It's 1 year consistent, and then
Or
within 3
incidences.
years, you have 4 experiences of homelessness that are at least a week in length. So it's either 4 times in 3 years of at least a week, or 1 year straight.
So this next section here, I know we have a lot of data to cover, but I think we're getting into like modalities and trying to understand, what we're going to be presented on a reoccurring basis. For these high utilizers and chronic homelessness, definitely going to be people who hit the chronic homelessness criteria.
Correct.
But will there be people in this list that are maybe first-time homeless, right? First 3 months, who just happen to have higher needs or higher utilization?
Absolutely.
Okay, I would like to differentiate those, right? Because there is a standard of recognizing chronic homelessness, right, based on time and length of experience. But I do see that there's an overlap. So is there any recommendations from your end, Mayor, on making that distinction?
I just think it's a major breakthrough in understanding what you're counting and reporting to us and our cognition of it. The fact that you're not including chronic in that, if you go back to the last slide, 26 is great. And we want to talk about the focus on them, but right now I haven't gotten done chewing on the 240.
So are the 26 here included in the 240?
No, I don't believe so.
Why wouldn't chronic experiencing homeless or those with higher needs be included in that 240?
We think they are.
They are, okay. So
And to that point, because we're going to build 2 separate by name lists, one for the high utilizers, but you're right, it is included into that.
So we're
240.
going to take, there's a general population, right? And we're going to extrapolate from that. Who are our high utilizers? Who has high medical needs? Who has severe income issues, physical health, right? Who are high utilizers of, tell me the services again, law
So
enforcement?
emergency services, law enforcement, fire department, emergency EMTs.
Okay. So from that, we're going to be able to see what emergency services specifically people are utilizing. So that's very detailed. I appreciate that.
And that's going to take working with the hospitals, probably going to be the hardest part just because of their sometimes inability to share HIPAA concerns, but that is definitely data that we need.
We might know from our case management that someone's been in the hospital, right? So we're going to be able to record that. But one of the biggest problems with, seeking data in this way is that we might be seeking this information, but there are non-disclosures where we're not going to be getting information from people about, when they encountered law enforcement. So how are we going to be obtaining that data from hospitals, from emergency services, from our fire department, from law enforcement? What does that effort look like?
For right now, I believe we're working with already the sheriff's department, and the fire department is giving us that data. With the hospitals, like I said, we do not have a working relationship with any of them currently.
I do believe that there's a high utilization of hospitals and emergency medical services. So, building that relationship is going to be really important because that's, such a great burden to the community for folks that are on the street to be utilizing emergency services over some of the many wonderful services that we offer here within the continuum of care. So I think that this is going to need some special attention, right? That the folks that are on this extrapolated list, we're going to have to recognize that there's specific challenges that they're facing.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more context, too, we'll absolutely need to build some more relationships to confirm the data we have from a lot of self-reports and observations from our outreach team. But that'll be exactly the intention of the licensed clinical social workers, that they'll be the ones addressing the high acuity and chronically homeless individuals on a much smaller caseload, because you'll see proportionally we have a much larger list of those experiencing homelessness in general, and you have your high acuity and chronically homeless. The licensed clinical social worker and their team will have a smaller caseload for those individuals with those higher level needs.
Okay, that's good.
Are there any of these 240 that we did not observe living in an encampment? I assume the answer is yes. So I would like to know how many of the 240 that we observed living in encampment.
And can we base that on some mapping or maybe a tangible reference to encampment, such as within the encampment resolution funding, we do have maps, and potentially those maps identify encampments. I think the term encampment can generally solicit images of tents within the brush, but also could be individuals hiding out behind electrical boxes. Sure. So I think the status of these individuals, what their current state looks like, a place not meant for human habitation could be a whole host of items.
We could also include the heat map that the city council receives on a weekly basis with this monthly report.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
I think that would be a helpful comparison. Thank you.
of course.
So where do you think the people that weren't in an encampment, I mean, can you throw at me some examples of places that we encountered them?
Sure, I'm gonna give Marcia that because I haven't even moved up here yet. I'm still South County.
And we're throwing a lot at you on your first day.
Where of those 240 are you? Specific.
The people that weren't in the encampments
So-
that are in this 240, just throw at me some, not the exhaustive list, but the top 3 places that you encountered people that was other than an encampment.
So we're getting a lot of phone calls. We're getting a lot of emails from the city the requests are coming in through the emails. So we're going to respond to those. So the city workers, Jose and Javier, we get all those calls. And so they come just randomly from different places and we go meet them or have them come to the office. So they're coming from all over the place, not just us, encountering somebody on the street ourselves.
Gotcha.
And that might be, just to clarify, Mayor, so the data here reflects where people are living outside, but not necessarily where you encounter them. So you can let us know, that you're finding a lot of people on the street are congregating in one particular area.
Sure.
But then in your HMIS and all of your record keeping, you might actually identify where they're staying as a particular encampment. Is that right?
That's where you'll see the heat map. So if we're on the street, when we go, say we go answer a call, an email saying, oh, there's a client over here at the Burger King, then we'll go there and that's where we clock the interaction and it captures the address. So that's where you guys see the red dots on the heat map where we're at throughout the city, answering those calls
Okay.
and requests.
That 240 mathematically is starting to bear a relationship to the total number of sheltered but homeless plus the total number of unsheltered. And I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm really trying to understand. But the fact that if somebody called you, then that they get on the list. But they're telling you, I'm here in the city of Vista. I'm going to be sleeping on the street tonight.
Yeah, and that's where we'll go send a team member out. Okay, we're going to go meet you at the gas station. And so we meet them there and try to figure out what are going to be the next best steps for them.
Okay. That's the thing, most important thing I want to get to is that these people are definitely, they're on the street. They're not meant for, a place not meant for human habitation. Okay.
And I think your next items here in the data kind of help us just, from a high level, describe what those interactions look like. So I'd love to continue and hear that.
Marsha, you want to, the different ones that you've encountered?
So I've had one in particular person who was in a wheelchair. We found her at that big like apartment. It's on South Melrose. What's that big building that they tore off the roof and they have a thing around it?
South Burlington?
1070 South Santa Fe.
South Santa Fe. So we found her there in a wheelchair. The next time, of course, we try to get her in a shelter because she can't walk. The next time we found her, we went down to RTFH where they're kind of, part of it is Oceanside, part of it is us. She was down in that encampment. And then the third time we found her, she was back at that building, even though it was all boarded up. So those are the kind of things we're seeing with some of these people. And we have another younger kid, he's a Tay, he's young. He was always right by the Food for Less, and we've been trying to figure out where he was because, they get pushed, right? And doesn't have a phone. And then we found him also down in Oceanside. So we do have a lot of clients who have been pushed into different directions. And so that's what we're seeing, is trying to follow that trail of where they're going.
Not to devolve here, but do you get any idea of how that 1070 Santa Fe building became swamped with squatters? I mean, how did the Scion call go out that was the place everybody should come to?
I don't know that answer, but I do know that they're still in there because the young lady she's walking now.
Yeah.
But she's telling us that there's still people in that building, even with that thing up.
Well, the more
Of course,
we
it's not
board it up
safe
and
for us
gate
to
it
go.
off.
We still go by there because people still congregate there.
Sure.
And also, we've noticed a big, a little bit more by South Sycamore, down by the Days Inn. It's, for some reason, it's been yesterday, last few days, it's been a hot spot for us.
You mean La
Now we
Quinta.
have also an RV down there, which was like, they just kind of start,
You say Days Inn, you mean La Quinta, right?
yeah.
Correct, off Sycamore by the Burlington, yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a real hot
don't have
spot
a
for
Days
us
Inn,
too.
right?
Been down there every day this week so far, trying to, like 10 people just starts to gather.
Yeah.
And it's even worse in the nighttime, I heard.
It speaks to some level of organization or organizer, or maybe it is just hive behavior. I don't know.
I would argue.
It's interesting.
This is an interesting sociological question. I think it's survival skills. I
Yeah.
think it's human survival skills talking to one another on the street. That would probably be my best bet. It's certainly a crime to squat in a building. And when I was providing services, I cleared out abandoned buildings and conducted services there. And you wonder, like, what, how could anybody come to this? And it's survival. I really believe it's survival. And so, as you're looking at folks that are on the street in different states of survival, maybe they're surviving, together in encampment. Maybe people are finding isolating in different locations is helping their survival. It definitely makes your job more difficult when people are being moved around. So, being able to compare for myself and the mayor and the council, the heat maps of where your activity is taking place, I really appreciate San Diego Rescue Mission. Y'all have been so transparent. As someone who's provided services myself, this is really how it should be done. I've gotten frustrated, right, with the lack of transparency at times, and this is a much better situation where your narrative and your experience and your story matches the data, right? And this being a public setting, a public meeting where we're accountable to our community out there, it really does make a difference for there to be such transparency. So thank you for that, and all this data has been very helpful. I'd like to make sure that we can direct back here to the slides, and who would like to describe for us a little bit more about some of these starting points and what happened to the, yes.
Okay, so we had 87 total, and this kind of breaks down where they went or what happened. So we had, out of that 87, 55 that were staying in a place not meant for habitation, one that was in the safe parking, one that was in Operation Hope. It looks like 5 were in our North County Lighthouse, 7 in La Posada, housing with no lease, 3, a detention facility, we had 1 individual, and Buena Creek Navigation Center, we had 14.
But what happened, you mean this is where they were after you talked to them? What does what happened mean?
Where they went to after,
That month, that's where they went that month, this month, or
Okay.
last month, yeah.
So is this, just so we're clear on the time frame, is this in a month or within that 90-day window?
this is the month report that we sent.
Okay, this is the
Month
month.
of
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. And in fact, just go back one slide. So, okay, so we had 87 contacts for the month. We multiply that. Now we're seeing where we're getting to 240. Really trying to figure out how many people are out there at one given time. What's the right? We just asked, was 90 days too little? Maybe it's too long. The good news is you're going to have this data specialist, and they're going to give us a number: 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. We go 180 if we want, and we can look at who's active in that period of time. I'd love to see it both ways and slice and dice it, and look at how they compare. Because this might maybe it's 60 or 30 days. It gives us a much more accurate picture of how many people are in need right now. Because that's what we're trying to solve for, is 0.
Yeah.
So.
And I think this next slide will show you a little bit, actually, after this slide. But so this is going to break down our race, gender, ethnicities, and I can barely read any of it. I don't have my glasses. I'm sorry, but
Who can speak to the veterans here? I know in our one of our last point in time, it was actually like 2 years ago, we had 11 veterans. Who can speak to the veterans and availability of VASH and why we're not?
I actually have a meeting with them every other week with RTFH and VASH. So they're really on that. So we should have some more success stories within the next 30 to 60 days. We have one person who is actually on South Sycamore in a wheelchair. She should be matched any day. So we are, and she's been out there for a while in the hospital. They put her back into a hotel. She went to like a extended care facility, and they put her back into a hotel only for a few days and then left me with her. So, but she's getting matched. So, and then we have people who won't accept help sometimes, which is heartbreaking because you want them to, but the good thing about that one person, he was on his way to San Francisco for rehab. So it might not be my plan, it was his plan. So there's other things that we're trying to help them with too if we know there's addictions involved.
People are really upset, and they should be, about veterans being homeless. That knowing the number of veterans who are homeless, knowing how many of the 7 are refusing services is important, because that's the only thing I can tell people that makes sense. I mean, certainly when you take a super small population of people as a subset of all homeless people, veterans create a very small subset of that. We know we could solve the problem for them. We could probably afford with VASH to give them all subsidized housing. And like we were talking about with subsidies earlier, there's a confinement to it because you have to have the status of being a veteran. So there's a limit to how much, you know, but knowing and being able to indicate that those people have declined, and that's why we're failing to serve their needs, because they're not saying yes. That's really important information for us to relay back to the voters who are paying these millions of dollars for us to do this work.
The majority of them are saying yes. I just had one that said no at that time.
Gotcha.
He went to treatment. That was, well, he decided he needed to go, so that was one of the ones. Who said
I'd
no.
love to understand the time cycle to get these veterans into the VASH housing, and be able to report back as, you know, as council members and mayor, is VA getting the job done? Is the federal government enough of a partner here? Or do we have the resources? You know, I'd love to better understand how we could do a better job serving veterans.
They are the ones getting housed first. They get housed the quickest.
Okay.
So the VASH voucher, once it kicks in, they are the ones that get housed the quickest. And so we're appreciative of that. There's a lot of things to that. And then there are, like we said, some that don't want nothing to do with the military, anything that's related to them. So then we have to outsource the help. I said, okay, you don't have to go through the VASH. We'll help you get into clarity and we'll get you matched to something else. You don't have nothing to do with the military. So some of them are super jaded and don't want anything to do with the government assistance in that aspect.
Thank you for tracking veteran status, and thank you for tracking accept versus decline of services rate.
And thank you for honoring our veterans' preferences. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the location of our initial contact. I think they send it, do you guys send out the heat map weekly or monthly? Weekly. So this would be where you would be able to see those numbers, that SDRM's outreach team, and where they met each individual on the map in Vista. And this is our total service interactions over the month of April. And the important, I mean, they're all important numbers, but the real ones you can see, street case management is the majority of what we do. But the other concerning number down near the bottom is the no shelter available. I believe this is a 96.
This 90. Is for what period of time?
The month of April.
So we had 96 people that wanted to go to the shelter in April.
That could not get into shelter. Correct.
Yeah, that is very concerning. So that really speaks to not only the number of shelter beds we have, but also not to be overlooked and probably to be looked at first is average duration in the shelter. Mm-hmm. In other words, if people are in the shelter and they're not making progress, you know, the navigation center, I see Hannah's got a thought.
That's correct. This would include duplicated individuals. So 96 acceptances, which would be fewer than 96 individuals.
Can you repeat yourself, Jonathan? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so to Hannah's point, there were fewer number of unduplicated individuals reported with this month, with a greater number of no shelter available metrics, which would mean this would include duplicated individuals. For example, you might have one individual that was interested in shelter during 5 different offers, and each time there wasn't a shelter bed available.
Okay, so this does not describe 96 individuals who were denied shelter. This was in your service
Service
interactions,
yep.
shelter was inquired, and we were not able to provide it, which I, again, appreciate the transparency, but perhaps we can have it broken down further to how many individuals were not able to be sheltered.
That's definitely a metric we can track. Yeah, and when speaking to that too, I mean, coming from somebody that's experienced homelessness, you typically have that 1 or 2 chances that somebody's really ready to go for it, and to not have that available, it's a deterrent, and it can really set somebody back months on their journey toward healing. So I know you all already know the importance of shelter readiness, but I just wanted to point that out.
And that concludes San Diego Rescue Mission
Great
presentation.
conversation, appreciate it.
The data for JFS Safe Parking was actually provided in the D1 presentation, so we'll be skipping them in this D3 presentation. Next up is Brenda Viveros, Shared Housing Program Manager with Townspeople.
Good morning. Here to provide a April snapshot of our enrollments in shared housing. For navigation in April, we had 10 new enrollments, and that's a total of 24 active clients and 19 households. There was 1 dependent reported, and we had 1 exit to stabilization.
We say 1 dependent reported. 1 person had a dependent?
Yes, 1 child. I don't know the exact age, but I can break that down in the future.
So that 1 exit, that's to permanent supportive housing. They were eligible for a different form of housing than this?
They all enter into a shared housing situation. So whether they were housed through an SRO, renting a room, or a true home share model where we...
I made a mistake in reading SH.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to add the stabilization at the end there.
You're good. Thank you.
But is it stabilized, shared, or supportive? What is SH?
Shared housing stabilization. My apologies, I forgot to add the stabilization piece.
Stabilization.
Yes, so all of our clients, they initially start off in the navigation phase. So that's where we do a comprehensive intake assessment with them, assess all of their rental barriers, assess for all income sources, and then from there we begin looking for housing options.
Could we clarify, this might be a small thing, but just for our kind of purpose of looking at the whole of the program, you still engage with people once they get their keys.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it would be a better description to say, instead of exiting to shared housing, to say to completed shared housing, right? Because we are not exiting them from the program at this time. That's just a small preference on my end.
Noted.
Thank you.
Yes, so they were done with the navigation phase, and then...
Maybe it's an entrance to shared housing.
Excuse me?
Maybe it's an entrance to shared housing instead of an exit to shared housing.
Yes, entry into shared housing.
I like completed because that's the goal of them being in the program, but I think that there's merit to both.
I'm okay either way.
All right.
And in stabilization, they're working with their case manager, so they meet in person as much as needed. And they go to their homes and they do budgets and just ensure that they're on top of it, really teaching them tenant rental responsibilities. And with a lot of our participants, we do offer them rental assistance. So we'll map out a calculation tool that we are implementing and provide them with some rental assistance as they're transitioning into their new home. And then these are the demographics for navigation. So equally 50% reported that they had a disability. Age, predominantly 62 and up. And then 20% equally split between 18 to 25 and 40 to 61. Sexual orientation, all reported heterosexual or straight. Race, white, the predominant race with 90%, and then Black African American at 11%. Ethnicity, the majority reported to be non-Hispanic. And then gender, 70% male and 30% female.
If I could just point out, and Mayor, you might have noticed this as well, those reporting disability for this service for townspeople and for our shared housing support. It seems like more people are reporting a disability here than they are to our outreach. Am I wrong in seeing that? Maybe staff can reflect on that with me. This might be a longer form conversation for offline and bringing
Sounds
it
right.
back.
Yeah, I
but
mean, the proportion is a little bit skewed compared to most other data
yeah,
sets.
maybe there's more of a willingness to disclose for some reason. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the individuals entering the home share program are certainly a subset of all the individuals we're engaging with outreach. I think with outreach, we have a much larger scope of services, so we capture a greater number of individuals. So of course, as with any statistics, when you have a fewer number of observations, you have kind of maybe the proportions and data are a little bit less reliable just because each observation will have a higher impact on any ratio or any other metric we might consider. So with example, 200 individuals versus 25, each individual within the 25 will skew the percentage at a much higher rate
Right.
than 1 out of 200.
I'd be interested to see long-term as the program goes on, how many people report having a disability.
And I guess to add to that, most of the participants, the referrals that we receive, they're already service connected. So really with shared housing, the way that we want the community to view shared housing and providers is that this is another resource, another tool in your tool belt. So along with diversion, think about shared housing as another tool, another resource, another housing option.
Thank you.
So yes, because they already have been service connected, most of them have already gone through some kind of assessment or they're already enrolled in another program in HMIS.
Okay.
What was the inception date for this program?
Contract was July 1st of 2024.
Yeah, so the city was awarded its grantee agreement with the RTFH July 1. The city's contract with townspeople was a little bit after that, but the program wasn't fully operational until about September.
And how many master lease apartments do you have under this contract, and where are they located?
Employees, we have,
Not employees, although I want to know that next.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your first piece.
How many master leased apartment units do you have?
Currently, that'll be on another slide, we have 4. We acquired another one in April. And projections for May are equally as bright. We have been so slammed in May.
Yeah. How many bedrooms do you have in the 4 apartment units?
Let's see. I'd have to get back to you. Most of them are, there's a 3-bedroom, and then there's about 2 2-bedrooms and 1 1-bedroom.
I can't keep track of what you just said, but yeah, I'd like to know how many bedrooms. And are these all in the city of Vista?
Yes.
And I'd like to know when you come back in 2 months, what's the average cost, fully loaded, the gross cost of rent per individual?
Yes, we have that on another slide. So currently that average is $1,013.32.
Yeah, help me understand that number, because I see that number, but so that's the total cost, including any subsidy?
No subsidies included. We don't have anyone with a subsidy that's currently housed in shared housing.
No subsidy. And what are we spending per, so how many people are we housing right now today?
We
have 5 master lease units.
So it's per household?
Yes, so in stabilization, we
17
have,
households.
yeah, there's 17 households and 25 active clients.
So, okay, so you have 17 households and 25 bodies, but the 25 bodies aren't living in 5 master lease units.
No.
So they're in some of your other master lease units somewhere else.
Some participants are housed just,
You helped them get an SRO or?
exactly.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. So what we're seeing, that's your average. So you're able to find housing for people at a cost of $1,013.32, and these are, I think I'm right to say these are market rate solutions,
Yes,
because
generally.
you said nobody's subsidized.
Right. So just as Brenda mentioned, we do utilize master leasing when we can, and if it's necessary, townspeople will also just help facilitate matched roommates to enter on their own lease with the property manager directly. So we don't always have to use a master lease.
And RTFH is paying for this, right?
Correct.
And is City of Vista contributing how many dollars?
From the general fund, zero. It's fully funded by RTFH. And also some additional clarification, Townspeople is operating a county-wide shared housing program. And then we're also
These
contributing.
25 are all Vista?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, stick with me for a second. How much is the program for 12 months?
Vista's contract with Townspeople is about 320.
320,000. Yep. So, my next question
Cost per client, and how's it compared to
is
the other
cost per
programs?
client per month. So you got $1,013. What's the cost per client per month of the services?
That's going to vary. I don't have a,
How many months of program data? We said August, September was when we housed the first clients.
it was about October when we really kind of started.
So how many months of data are we looking at here? How many complete months of data?
This is just 1 month, but the total active clients would be since inception of the program, which, as Brenda mentioned, is about October when we housed the first client. Contract was initiated around September, and so, of course, some startup time.
$320,000 divided by 12 is $26,666. Divided that by 25 bodies is $1,066. So right now we have $1,013 cost, and we to the program participant, and we have $1,066 in overhead in addition to that's being paid for by the taxpayer. How do we get that 1,066 way down?
And I just want to say that average number, though, I will say that the SROs do bring that average quite down, but
They bring which number down?
the average for
They bring the
rent per household.
rent per household.
Yes, because typically the SROs are,
It's good. We want to get it as low as possible. That's the name of the game here, right?
yeah.
And we want to get this overhead number as low as possible. I mean, I'm gonna throw it out there. If we took the $1 million from the safe parking and we were to invest it in this program, does that immediately, and when they come here in their car, we go, hey, park your car in front of the apartment. Here's the keys. We don't want you to sleep in your car. And it's, I don't know. I mean, but we got to get the $1,066. The overrun, the administrative burden can't be more than a couple of $100 per month and then it's still a lot. How do we get this way down? I need you to think that through with all the smartest people that you know. And we can't spend $1,066 per person per month in admin costs. Can't do it. That's just not okay. And probably the way to get that number down is to grow your program, because probably you would have more capacity with the minimum. You got to give somebody a full-time job to keep them employed, right? But could with the resources you have right now, could you help more people?
Some additional clarification. So the $320,000-ish for this contract is primarily for client assistance funds. Townspeople is not funded for very much admin at all. It's only about $3,000 in admin and about $100,000 in staffing.
So say those numbers again.
It's about $100,000 per year for the contract that we're paying for their staff, and like
So we said
5,000 in
320.
admin.
So is that 220 is available for subsidy?
200,000, yeah.
200,000. Okay. You said you haven't provided subsidy yet. Is that pool, we're going to be providing subsidy, or is that for down payment, rent deposit? How are we going to spend that $200,000?
There's a term that you guys would use for those funds, right? It would be based on a protocol of perhaps first month, last month rent.
Is that what it is?
So the flex fund, the way it was written into the contract, it gives us some liberty so we can operate, I want to say, sort of rapid rehousing-ish, because we assess every client initially in the beginning to look at all their income sources and see, are they going to be able to sustain this long term?
Right.
So what do we need to do in the beginning to front load them with some additional financial supports and community resources? So they do that with their case manager. And we will come up with a plan where initially they're only contributing, let's say, even like, yes, for most clients, we cover first month's rent and the security deposit or any kind of prorated rent. So they're not worrying about any kind of move-in cost initially. And then from there, again, it's very client-centered. You know, we work with their strengths, with areas of growth, and then we determine what that rental assistance dollar is going to look like.
So I want to, make sure that I can continue this conversation. I have about 15 more minutes that I'm able to attend this meeting, and then we'll have to clear out. But so to clarify, of the people that we've housed so far, would you be able to break down how much subsidy has been provided?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have that number now?
I don't.
Okay, that would be offline. I would love to
Sure.
know that information.
Yeah, I can tell you what we've spent per client.
Okay.
Yeah, per
That'd
participant.
be huge. Your ability to quantify your administrative burden per person and per household, and our actual taxpayer outlay per person and per household is enormous. What you're doing, connecting people with market rate, in my personal opinion, not everybody's going to agree with me, this is the solution. We cannot subsidize our way out of homelessness. It's
I think
never going to
It's
happen.
great coordination, and we do have funds available for those that are rent burdened or who are struggling. But I think we spoke earlier, and this is part of the general updates, about subsidizing, right, and about being able to provide relief for people. So being able to see really the number that this program has to spend in order to house people. I do grieve when we subsidize market rate housing, because that is just making someone richer and someone gets housed for a little bit. So I do have those challenges with it.
Yeah, this is the whole solution to the housing end of homelessness, is helping people navigate into something that's market rate affordable, and maybe they need a little bit of what's the clinical word for handholding? A little bit of what am I looking for?
Case management?
Case management. Thank you. I knew there was a politically correct way to say that. They need somebody to check in and make sure that that things are being taken care of. Maybe sometimes, like one of the people I met who had disability income, but his friends in the encampment were encouraging him. They would get him to go buy the liquor or whatever they wanted on his benefits card, and his money was gone in the first 3 days because they were stealing it from him. And he said to me, "But these are the only people I know in the entire world. They're my only friends." And so you could see why he was willing to give him his money. Somebody like that needs a financial conservatorship. They need to make sure the rent gets paid first, so they're not living on the street. Then make some new friends in your new permanent housing. I want to really focus. What's your name again?
Brenda?
Brenda, you're the savior here, because you have the only program that is multiplying the fishes and the loaves. Everything else is unsustainable. Only what you're doing is sustainable, because we could pour more money. We could take a lot of other housing money and give it to you if you can figure out how to get people in and stabilize them and keep them in this housing. It's super important. So maybe you can work with the data specialist. We got to figure out where these people are going to live after they come out of the navigation center. We got to figure out where we're going to get them housed. This is the key to be able to not decline people to the shelter, but to say, yes, they got to get out of that shelter immediately and they got to get into this housing. So how do we make this successful? With the government, federal, state, local, we can't afford to pay for housing for everybody. But through finding affordable market rate and shepherding people, helping with the first and last month, guaranteeing, okay, we know they don't have any credit, but if they don't pay it, we're going to step in. And the landlord goes, yeah, okay, I don't have to take the financial risk, great. This is so important. This is the most important thing that we haven't spent nearly any time talking about is the last step in the chain of housing is what you're providing, housing stabilization. This is so important.
And thank you. And I do think that the case management is something that we will probably see more of, more robustly in your data as you continue to follow folks that are stably housed. You can help us identify what are those risk factors that contribute to someone re-entering homelessness. So you can be part of the solution and part of the prevention. Thank you.
So 100,000 over 25 people, you're at 333 people. So we got to get a lot more people in your program to divide the cost of your admin over so that it starts to look super, super reasonable. Thank you very much for your good work.
course.
Keep it up, multiply it.
Yes, and I did want to share good news on your referral that you provided. We are master leasing a unit for the elderly family.
Wonderful.
So that and then thanks to coordination with Jonathan and Daniel, they're at the San Diego Rescue Mission, and they will be moving in early July.
Good. They're in a voucher right now, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. And did they have enough to pay for their market rate solution? Anyway, that's too much information.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They're going to be good though. We're in great contact
That's great.
with. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for your good work. That's awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What you're doing is making it possible for everybody else sitting here to do what they need to do. There's got to be a supply of, it's got to be ultimately market rate. It's the only way we can have enough. Thank you.
Next up is Nanette Steenstra with the Brady Creek Navigation Center presentation.
Good morning. Okay. So for the month of April, the BCNC had 16 intakes, 12 of those being from the San Diego Rescue Mission, one of those being from Alpha Project, and then 3 from other agencies, which are Jewish Family Services, and 2 from North County Lifeline. 11 of those clients were previously living in a place not meant for habitation. 2 were living in an emergency shelter. 1 was at a hotel, self-paid. 1 was at a residential project, so that was a sober living. And then the last one, the label is not included there, but they were staying or living with a friend. And these clients were homeless for various times before entry. About 9 of them were homeless for less than a year. So this graph, it's the amount of months homeless. So 9 were homeless for less than a year, and 7 were homeless for between 1 to 5 years before entry. This outlines the services provided. So on the top left, those are services provided directly by our staff. On the top right, those are referrals. So our staff referred clients to external organizations for services that we aren't able to provide in-house. So things like mental health services, enhanced care management, et cetera. On the bottom left, those are resources provided by our staff. So we offer bus passes to residents. We have Chromebooks available for use, bicycles, and then we also have a shuttle that will bring clients to different locations that they need to go to. We also offer classes, so that's in the middle on the bottom there. We have various classes that fall under the mental health meeting category. So we have goal setting classes, self-reflection classes. We also offer faith meetings, an anger management class, and then physical wellness class. So one of our navigation coaches will take clients for walks around our property. And then we also have different volunteers who will come on site and provide services. So you could see there were 9 clients who received barber or manicure services from Bellis Academy. And then we placed 2 clients with jobs, and 1 client was matched to a rapid rehousing voucher. And I also wanted to highlight in the services, we were able to offer 13 different clients cash assistance. And so we're able to pay for, that's directly out of our client assistance budget fund. and we're able to pay for deposits, moving costs, different health assistance, registration, employment costs as well. And then this has our exit information. So you could see we had 16 clients exit the BCNC. 6 of those clients returned to homelessness, 1 entering a shelter, and 5 going back to the street. We had 5 clients who moved into permanent housing. So one of them is marked as other. They went to a live-in caregiver position. And sorry, the graph, there's 2 green bars there. So we had 2 clients who went into a rental with no subsidy, and then 2 that went into a rental with a subsidy. And then we had 5 clients who went into temporary living situations. So 2 going into transitional housing. I'm sorry, 2 going into a hotel, 1 going into transitional housing, 1 living with family, and 1 living with friends. And so that's 62.5% who were able to leave homelessness and go into permanent or temporary housing. And out of that, that's 31% going into permanent housing upon exit. And then you could see on the bottom left, the average stay before exit to all destinations is about 81 days. And the average stay, and to clarify, this is for the month of April. So this is only taking the April exit length of stay into account. And then the average stay before exiting to permanent housing is 63 days. And you could see the graph, it's broken down by the days stayed, with the pink being a return to homelessness, blue being temporary housing, and green being permanent housing. Thank you very much.
For those updates.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? I do apologize, Esperanza. I know that you are next on the queue. Unfortunately, at this time, I do have to exit, and so we'll need to close the meeting. But for this presentation, I know that it is a council's whole interest to hear more from Operation Hope. Is this something that we would need to forward to the remaining of the council? Okay, I wouldn't want to have to wait 2 months to hear from you. But perhaps this can be heard on our consent calendar so that at least our whole council can get a chance to review it. Is that all right? Okay, thank you so much.
And I know we're going to adjourn the meeting formally, but if it's okay with everybody, I'll listen so I can hear the data.
And if you're able to agree that this can be seen on consent calendar.
Of course.
And then we can all formally review it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. With that, I'll
Thank
have to
you.
exit.
Okay.
And the meeting will be formally adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, City Council. It's great to be here today to report on the great work we're doing at Operation Hope North County. Thank you for making a few extra minutes. I'll be brief but clear. So we had a very full shelter in the month of April. As you can see here, we had 43 clients, so every room pretty much filled to vacancy, to full, which was good for us. Well, good, that's comparative. But we were happy to be providing the best services that we can to the people that are in need. As you can see, one good report I would like to show is at least 40% of our clients, they are from Vista or have very close ties to Vista, and it's just why they are in the shelter. And I do want to report an uptick in that number. I really want to attribute that to the work that we've been doing with the City Council, with Daniel, with Jonathan Lung, connecting us with Vista Unified School District. We've been having regular meetings with them. So we really have been approaching this strategically to make sure that we are well known throughout the city of Vista, and that the residents here are able to take advantage of our services. So I do want to report that I think that is a positive improvement. We also have here, as you can see, 67% of our clients remain to be children, so still proudly serving youth and families, majority here. And it shows data on the top, 37% female, 63% male. We've actually seen a big uptake in fathers and families. We even had a single father with 2 daughters who lost their mother a year ago due to a health issue. So we definitely want to celebrate the fathers that have been in our shelter as well, and the mothers, but definitely have seen an increase in male and dads as well. And then race there, you can see we have 63%, I think that's Hispanic, and then 18% African American, 5% mixed race, and 14% Samoan.
I will make you read through the rest of the demographics. I took a look at all the numbers.
Thank you. And I really do want to highlight the incredible services that we continue to provide across our programs. We had a really great career readiness class that the clients absolutely loved called 3 Strides Forward. That was actually something that used to be at the shelter, and we brought it back. So we definitely saw some really excitement and growth with our clients getting excited to do interviews and find new employment. We also have our regular community meetings that I will say our leadership team proudly attends to make sure that we are addressing client concerns directly and helping to build a positive culture in our shelter. I've seen a huge increase in just like the culture there with the community meetings that we've been working on to approach them from a trauma-informed lens and from a way to really build positivity among our clients. I'll actually be there tonight. You're welcome to stop by if you want to come. And then we also have, and I also want to report that our clients have reported really feeling that we're listening to their concerns and addressing suggestions they have or resources they need. So that's felt really good in our surveys that we get from our clients. We also have had our 4 financial literacy classes that continue. Those workshops have been really strong. We have one of our amazing volunteers from North Coast Church who has been leading those workshops for years, and we've integrated with Spark Point and United Way with many of the other shelters in the area for the curriculum and for progress monitoring and data tracking. And then we also have our Vista Community Parenting classes once a month. Those continue to be strong and impactful for our clients. On the youth side, we've had our 4 African drumming classes that are every Friday. If you ever would like to come, they're a good time. Every Friday night, 6:30 p.m. You're more than welcome. It's been so wonderful to watch our clients and families bond over music. And then we also have our aftercare youth enrichment classes that are every night from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday. We've had 19 sessions in the month of April, and that includes hands-on activities in academics, in STEM, in emotional learning, in arts and crafts. And then that's when the parents are in their classes and when the parents also do their chores. And then we also have every evening, as you know, we provide dinner. So it says 30 hot dinner meals. We should times that number by 43, so 1,200 plus meals provided through our meal providers, our wonderful meal providers, and through shelter as well. I think this month we only had to provide 10% of the meals. So we continue to do outreach for that program. And again, you're always welcome to come. And I want to give the city a shout out for their regular meals for us as well. And then we also had 74 individual case management meetings conducted by our case managers where we go over their shelter plans, help them identify resources, give referrals, and really kind of support their growth and their path in the shelter. And then we also had our Community Resource Fair, which was on April 30th for Dia de los Niños. And we had over 380 community members present for the resource fair. It was absolutely incredible. We provided complimentary food, some yummy tamales. We also had haircuts, clothing giveaways, toy distribution. Many different partners were there. Over 700 pounds of toys were handed out to the children. We had a bouncy house, fun activities, and over 25 different community partners were on site as well. So it was a really great resource fair. In terms of exit, so I want to be very transparent that, as you all know, I'm a very data-driven person, and part of my job this year has been really working with the team to understand these numbers. And after further review of the numbers, I actually feel like how some of these exits were classified as unsuccessful actually needs to be re-reviewed just because of the data that I'm seeing. But it does say 6 unsuccessful exits, 4 temporary hotel, 2 unknown. My understanding is those families that went to the hotel actually decided that it was best to go back home and live with family. So they temporarily were in a hotel, but that was on their transition because after spending, I think, 60 so days or 72 in the shelter, they were able to get the clarity that they needed, that going back home to live with parents in, I think it was Arizona, was what was best for them and their family. So, you know, something I would qualify as successful exit. But again, I think part of that is just norming what our team on what successful actually means and what unsuccessful actually means.
Was that 6 family units?
No, it was six
people?
individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a family. I think this is a family of 4 that I'm talking about.
Okay.
So that's just one thing we're doing internally is really examining where they're going. What does that mean? What does that look like? Making sure the way we're capturing things are reflective and accurate as possible. And then 5 successful into a home or private continuum of care. So yeah, other than that, we had 11 exits in the shelter, and we continue to monitor the data very closely to make sure we're accurately reflecting what's happening. Any questions? Sorry,
Do you
I'm
happen to know
talking
how
fast.
many days that you had vacant rooms in the last month?
Have we had any vacant rooms?
Yeah.
No, we have not, actually. We've been full. We just had a client exit on Sunday, successful exit into a home, a father and his son, which we're really proud of. And we had another client exit, I think 2 days ago, another father and his 2 daughters. But we already have people online that are like coming in. I believe both of the rooms will be filled by tomorrow after they're cleaned out. And I think one of them already came in yesterday. So we've had very short vacancies, just, turning over rooms. But we've had a strong wait list, and our wait list is ready. So we're happy that those rooms will be filled very quickly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you all so much. We really appreciate your support. I feel like the clients that we've seen over this past month, we had a special event for Mother's Day. And I'm not really reporting on that right now because it's not May report. But I will say it was an absolutely incredible event. The clients I've witnessed are just so resilient, so inspirational, so grateful for this support. They all come up to me every day and tell me how grateful they are to have the shelter and how much it means to them and their families. And the event on Saturday, there was not a dry eye in the house. We had over 20 volunteers coming to give special services for the moms, facials and massages and makeup and hair. And the kids did a little presentation to honor their moms. And it was just really, really special. So I just want to let you know how much this work really means to the community members and the families that we serve. Thank you.
That's good. And you're connected with our GFS people and the safe parking folks. And
Yes, actually, the team was planning to go this week in the evening, and I know it had to get rescheduled, but we were planning to go there, and we rescheduled that meeting so that we could make sure we're connecting closely. So I think it got rescheduled for next week, but we're excited about that.
okay, good. I just want to make sure that you guys are fully connected, relationships are engaged, and we get those families and the kids out of the cars.
Absolutely agree.
Rescue mission is going to facilitate too.
Yes.
That's good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last question I forgot to ask Nanette is, do you know how many days of vacancy you had? I'm assuming it was next to 0. Have you still been at 100% occupancy? Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, if it's just, minimal turnover, minimal days required to turn a room over, you're not having any sustained vacancy rate. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it makes sense. If we have 96, that's about 3 yeses a day to go. So then it's just about whether one of those 3 has got a room and they're actually ready to go and would be productive to put there. So,
The weekly updates could be another good opportunity for the council members to view how many vacant beds were per night on a weekly basis for the BCNC.
I'll be honest, I don't have the ability to digest all this stuff every week, which is why the ability to come on at least a monthly or every other month and really dig into it and ask questions and understand it better, to me is really important. I really want to know. Thank you, everyone, so much. I appreciate you sticking around. Thanks for making it a priority to come and report. I won't keep you all any longer. I'm gonna ask Jonathan. I'm here if you want to talk to me, but I'm really curious, and I'll probably come down there and talk to you, because I don't want to keep everybody at this point. I'll let you guys go. We already formally adjourned, so as mayor, I usually get to say, all right, we're adjourned, and then everybody leaves, but we've already done that. Thank you, everyone. I want to know about this shared housing